Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Have you or someone you love been a victim of a crime that's still unsolved? Crime Curious has teamed up with one of the top private investigation services in the Indiana and surrounding area. If you have listened to us long enough, you know that we do not seek out services or products that are meaningless to us or hold no real value. So you can trust us when we say that Corbett Investigations comes with decades of experience you won't find anyplace else. Corbett Investigations is run by a former homicide commander of one of the country's most successful homicide units, has put over 400 people in prison for homicide, handled over 1,100 death investigations, and solved 33 cold case murders. To be real with you, Mr. Corbett had a really difficult time telling us what we should highlight in this segment because he does not like to sound like he's bragging. Solving crimes has been his life's passion, and he has never done it for the accolades or recognition. He has a whole team behind his services that help him be so successful, as they specialize in things like bloodstain analysis, ballistics, crime scene reconstruction, and forensic pathology, just to name a few. When you contact Corbett Investigations, you talk directly with Tim Corbett. He is hands-on with every case and can travel anywhere that's needed to get the job done. Corbett Investigations prides itself on honesty, truth, feet to the ground, real investigation work, and the strength to stand up to whatever is in the way of solving the crime. Corbett Investigations specializes in complex homicide cases, sex offenses, and criminal investigations that are old and new. Tim and his team have a reputation for finding witnesses and information that others could not. Although we hope none of our listeners ever need private investigation services, if you do, we recommend contacting Corbett Investigations and mention this segment on Crime Curious for a free consultation. Contact Tim Corbett today at 574-229-8115. You can also check them out on Facebook at Corbett Investigative Services, Inc. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
Let's shake all of our gree-gree, Megan. Here we go, kicking off another week. Crime Curious. Oh, that was a powerful squeak. I liked it.
That's who I am as a person.
And how did
A powerful squeak.
That's who I am as a person. a powerful squeak. You know, that actually sums up both of us pretty well.
Really, depending on the day.
Mm-hmm, I like it.
Sometimes I'm a roar. Sometimes I'm a squeak.
Squeak. So for today, I'm bringing us a child abuse case.
Lovely.
I know.
I'm going to drink my coffee now.
Yep. I think that you should. And Brain Bath Jason was supposed to join us, but he is a little under the weather this morning. So I had done this in the intention of him also, bringing his perspective as well.
I know. He was for those of you that don't know, he was a former Child Protective Service worker. So he's seen really awful, terrible instances of child abuse, the same as you.
Yeah.
And so
that's where Jason and I met 15 years ago.
It's interesting to have your perspectives.
Oh, gosh. So I'm bringing you the case of Kaylea Louise Titford.
Okay.
All right. And this is not an American case. She was born in Wales. And it's just horrible. But we've had this requested by several listeners for our perspectives, on it. And
from like international listeners?
There were actually so many I didn't even make a list of all of them. So I think American. This came over to our
this
news.
overseas case, clearly has an impact internationally.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you a little bit about Kaylea first. She was born September 27th, 2004, to parents Alan Titford and Sarah Lloyd Jones. The family lived in Newtown, Powys in Wales. Kaylea was born with spina bifida, leaving her reliant on a wheelchair. She was also born with hydrocephalus, which was actually dealt with by an operation, and the result was a success. So she did not have any reduced brain capacity or function.
They probably put a shunt in.
Yep. Her physical disability from spinal bifida left her without movement or much feeling in her legs, but she was an accomplished wheelchair user. She was competitive in national wheelchair sports.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
How old is she then?
At the time of this case, she tragically died at 16.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But she lived a pretty fulfilling life as a youth in terms of her disability. Like, she really made something of it.
Yes. We're going to see up until about 2013 or so, she was well cared for. Her medical appointments, like all of these things, she was very independent. We'll get to it. But yeah, this isn't a situation where she was born this way and then didn't have a series of thriving.
Right. And the reason I asked that is you've presented me with a number of cases where, because you have a child with disabilities, the parent or caregiver or somebody in the household basically starts abusing them quite young when they're helpless, dehumanizing them basically.
Yes. We'll see that dehumanization comes later.
Okay.
For Kaylea.
That was me. I did that.
Yes, you did.
Take that out.
Nope,
I apologize.
That's okay. It happens sometimes. So Kaylea went to mainstream school. She had a learning assistant that helped her with things in school that she just couldn't do herself, being wheelchair bound, okay? But she wouldn't allow people to do, like, even push her in the wheelchair or open a door for her. If she could do something for herself, she did. So her school assistant was simply there just to help with the obvious things, like having no movement and feeling in her legs, obviously to get on, let's say, a toilet. If there's not a levee there for her to pull herself up to or on and to swing herself over, then she obviously would need help to do that, right? Just those sorts of things being in the public that aren't going to be readily available for her, given her disability. So she was described as being funny and chatty. Her teachers really enjoyed her wit and in her bubbly personality. She also was really accomplished in wheelchair basketball, and she once competed in wheelchair sports with the hopes of someday becoming a Paralympian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She's real talented then.
I did see an article, and sorry because I don't remember at this point in time. I didn't do any direct quotes from it, so I didn't make note of it, but it is in our sources. But there was an article where a gentleman who was her coach, essentially like a basketball coach and like a physical education coach, who just really enjoyed working with her at a young age. She came in really young working with him and then stopped about 13, 14. But she was like really good at trash talk, and she was really good. She was like a really good shooter, and he had a lot of hopes for her at really thriving in the sports world throughout her education. But as we will see kind of towards 2013, and she's going through puberty and things like that, some things changed for her. And he said that he happened to run into her, and she was a different person. She was very shy and withdrawn. She had gained some weight, things like that. But he just told funny stories about how, if he would miss, like when they're shooting around in the basketball and he would miss, she would trash talk in a really fun, lighthearted way, and how good she was. Like if she had just been able to stay in that club sport and in that, we might have had a little bit of a different outcome, but that's not what happened. So, and there were concerns about Kaylea's weight from a young age. But at the time, her parents had successfully worked with specialists to improve her diet and to stabilize her weight in her younger years.
Okay. Was this a little bit of fail to thrive? Like, was she having some issues keeping weight on?
No.
She was having
the opposite.
issues with having too much weight on.
Yes. Okay. Yep. So that starts at a young age, but at that point in time, her parents were really involved in her care and working and taking the advice of the specialists and staying on top of it. So it was remedied. It was under control, and she was involved in all of these other extracurricular things.
Okay, so keeping her as active as one can when you're immobile.
Yes. However, this changes in 2013 when her weight gradually increased to the point up until her death. But in 2013, she weighed close to 308 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
she is only
She was
16
born,
at that point?
not in 2013, no, because she was born in 2004. So this is where we see that kind of change where now she's gaining weight. She's encrusting. That's not a word.
No.
Y'all.
I feel like I've been encrusted sometimes, depending.
It's a Sunday morning.
We're
think
encrusted.
that we are just encrusted right now. She is encroaching.
Oh, encroaching. That's the word.
On, her puberty hits really hard. And really what I think we see happen here is she starts to gain weight. And it's harder for her as she's going through these transitions of getting older. Her parents stop
trying to feed her healthfully.
Well, they stop even taking advice of the specialists and whatnot. This interferes, of course, given her developmental stage at this point in time. Kaylee's self-esteem starts to take a huge hit. So then she no longer wants to participate with things. She becomes shy and withdrawn. And all that does, and essentially depressed, is increase the weight gain more.
Yes.
And so without her parents keeping up with her specialist's diet, with keeping up with her appointments, with keeping her in extracurricular activities, everyone just becomes complacent.
Okay.
Then it just gets worse. So that's 2013 is really where we start to see this pivotal
decline,
turning point. Okay, she really starts to get an increase in weight, and she stops participating in other things that she was active in her youth. And then everything goes real bad in the UK when the lockdown hits in March 2020.
Oh, okay. But this started 6 years before.
It did. The weight gain started in 2013.
Okay.
And it just gradually gets worse.
So
okay.
Here we are 7 years later.
And a lockdown happens.
Yes.
In response, of course, to the coronavirus pandemic. Kaylea. Yes, it is spelled Kaylea. And so I keep seeing that A at the end of her name and wanting to say Kaylea, but it's Kaylee. She would be dead just 6 months later from the lockdown. Her disability meant that she was unable to wash or dress herself or even go to the toilet unattended. When she was still attending school every day, Kaylee's parents helped to get her ready in the mornings.
And you have aides at school to assist you.
Yes. But when schools and offices closed, her parents become completely lazy.
And they don't have some type of option for in-home care even during the pandemic?
Of course they did. They declined it.
Okay.
You're about to really not like Kaylee's parents.
Well, I thought we might be going there.
Uh-huh. Unable to move unassisted, Kaylea was soon being left in bed all day and all night. Her parents stopped washing her, dressing her, or even taking her to the toilet, leaving her to lie in her own filth instead.
Why? What happens to parents they clearly cared for her before?
Yep.
What happened to them that they just stopped?
Well, they're on lockdown too.
Because they couldn't send her out of the home anymore?
Yeah.
They decided they despised their child?
Well, as we will see, the ignoring, just leaving her in her bedroom as if she does not exist made their life easier, right? They didn't have to deal with it. When she was going to school, they at least had a break. Yeah. Seemingly a break, but now being in lockdown in the house together.
She's old enough to be miserable by this. Is she? I mean, is this poor young lady hollering out please help me?
Yes.
I need help. I need to use the bathroom.
We'll get there.
Oh,
but the answer to that question is
yes.
Absolutely yes. Mm-hmm. There was a hoist in Kaylee's bedroom to help her get into her wheelchair. At the time of her death, it is found covered in dust and flies because it had not been used for some time, because Kaylea became too big to fit in the wheelchair at all, leaving her completely trapped, and her parents did not get her a bigger wheelchair. In what I believe was an attempt to distance themselves completely, her parents began only communicating primarily by text with her.
From the house?
From the house. They're in the living room, and she's in her bedroom. The night before she died, Kaylee was screaming in pain, and her father does admit to texting her twice to shut up.
Oh, my God.
I know. It's horrible.
Did she ever try to text 911 or call for help?
I do not believe so. I don't think so.
And we don't know if her phone even had those capabilities.
Right.
Well, they would have had 911 capabilities, but maybe not. Mm-hmm. This is the UK. I don't know what
it is. Theirs is 999.
Okay.
In the UK. So as the lockdown accelerated, Kaylee's parents only fed her high-calorie fast food. That's what they ate. So, and that really seems to be the only way they were taking care of her, is feeding her. They're giving her food, but it is not the food that she needs, okay? She's also diabetic. They're not dealing with that. And so she was getting upwards of 5 nights a week high-calorie fast foods.
Yeah, they're feeding her cheeseburgers and French fries.
Mm-hmm. At the time of her death, she was 321 pounds and making her body mass index 70. So she was morbidly obese for her height and age. October 10th, 2020 is when authorities make a heartbreaking discovery. Kaylee's mother called 999, their equivalent of American 911, after finding her unresponsive, and paramedics were dispatched to their home.
At what point did this bitch start panicking, trying to clean?
I don't believe...
Or if it was even possible to clean.
Based on the description that the EMTs and that the police found her and the home in, they did not.
Or did they? That could be so bad? Right?
You're so right, Megan. Oh, it was by the time mom calls 999, Kaylee's body was covered with maggots.
That's not an immediate phone call.
Sure isn't.
Not if we know anything about insects, bugs, and death.
Yep, and the order of operations by which they come in, they determined that Kaylee had been gone for at least 48 hours before emergency call was made.
Yeah.
I truly believe that mom did call when she found her.
They just hadn't been in there in 2 days. They had
not been in there in 2 days.
Not even to throw her sack of fast food at her?
Nope, guess not. I do not know. There is a sister, too. She's not mentioned a lot because she's also a minor.
Okay.
And so...
Who was in the home?
She was in the home. There's a lot of text message evidence that she had been texting about being bothered by the flies, she was helping take care of Kaylee. So I don't know if sister was the one that had been bringing the food in and maybe she was away. That's just conjecture on my part. But we know that sister had been trying to tell mom and dad, like, this is getting bad. It's gross.
My sister's
We've got to help her. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh my God.
But she, her name's not mentioned.
And she's a minor.
She's a minor. Mm-hmm. She's also a victim, in my opinion, in this case as well. So the sheets, the paramedics find and the police find that the sheets in which Kayla was laying on were heavily soiled. The air was very thick with flies. Bottles of urine littered the room. Paramedics were tripping over just absolute junk and debris, trash, just nothing has been cleaned as they attempted to try to save her and then realized that
she's already gone.
Yeah, she's been gone a long time. Kaylee's parents blamed the family dogs for the excrement all over Kaylee's bed and floor. I'm sorry, the dogs didn't jump on her body
and shit on her. No.
Give me a break. Or underneath her. Come on. Upon examination, authorities found that Kaylee's body was also covered in painful sores.
Yeah, she had bed sores because no one was moving her.
She did.
Or using that Hoyer lift to move her body around.
Yep, which is where the flies had been coming in for a long time prior to her death. Her unwashed skin had turned black and crusty. Police reported that the stench of decay emanating from her bedroom was unbearable, throwing doubt on her parents' claims that they hadn't noticed anything wrong before making the 999 call. By the time maggots are coming in, you guys, that stench would have been horrific.
There's just a special place in hell, Charnell.
I have to believe
for
so.
any vulnerable person, not just a child, vulnerable adults. You know how many vulnerable adults and elderly have died in the same capacity because of the caregivers?
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I use that term loosely.
I will tell you a story. When I was working CPS way back in the day, this was probably 15 years ago. At that time, we had to cover on call for adult protective services.
Oh, yes.
And the unique thing about adult protective services here in Michigan, and it probably is in many places, but I can only speak from Michigan's perspective. When you're called in and you show up and the person is refusing help and they are oriented to time and place, we can't force services on them.
Correct. Not unless they have already an established legal guardian.
Right. And I distinctly remember a coworker, Clarice, we'll call her.
Clarice.
We love our coworker.
Clarice was
Sounds
very
like
competent.
Clarice. Yes. She had a terrible on-call experience with covering a shift for APS because she went to the home and this person, his deterioration from his diabetes had gotten to the point where he had such significant gangrene on one of his feet.
The smell.
He was still refusing treatment, but she recognized his state. And so she calls 911 and 911 comes in. And at this point, I mean, he's horribly sick. He has gangrene, which is a terrible infection. Okay.
Yeah, he's probably dying.
When they lifted him, the paramedics lifted him off the bed onto the stretcher. His foot fell off.
Oh.
Okay. Because he had
Erotic
dilapidated
all the way through.
Yes. And I will never forget that story. It was very traumatizing for Clarice.
I feel like you should have given everyone a trigger alert there.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, you're right.
because I've seen these type of situations and would expect you to have said skin or some toes.
Nope.
It was necrotic through the bone.
It was, yeah. It started. It actually started
coffee.
in his calf, and had went down. But yeah. So these
poor Clarice.
Yes,
I can picture her face like right now, and when she gets back to the office, she must have been like, "You guys won't fucking believe this."
No, and it was a Monday morning that she came in.
I'm
still
done
traumatized
now for the week. I'm going home.
Very soon after that, we stopped covering on call for APS. They had to start taking their own on call.
In your line of work, if you go to visit a child and a body part falls off, you know what to do next.
Yeah.
But with an adult, again, if you can state that there's competency, at least to the point where, and they are often. And
I mean, truly, I think what had happened in this point in time is that his body was so numb. He
couldn't feel pain.
No. And more than likely the infection had spread, through his brain. I mean, she made the right call. He might have been able to tell her his name and what date it was, but he was clearly ill. So that is why she was like escalated this to, rightfully so to 911. But I say all that to tell you this does happen. As you pointed out, we see adults deteriorate
but
in
this
state.
Same thing, like the description you gave, albeit no body parts appear to have fallen off of Kaylea that we are aware of. She's in almost this bad of a state,
Absolutely.
But it's because people have let her get that way.
Yes.
Or done this to her intentionally or by omission.
Yep. They absolutely, through their own complete a lack of empathy, caring. I don't know. This is such a gross negligence.
I'm running criminal charges through my head.
Oh, yeah.
Of all the things I possibly, as a former prosecutor, would have started charging these people with.
Mm-hmm. And we get there for sure. But it's just, this is such a significant case of neglect. One of the worst, I think, that I have heard of, aside from all of those cases where people are locked in closets and just left to die, right? We've covered those child abuse cases.
Well,
this is out in the open.
It is. And these are situations where, at least in the US, you get all these arguments about that level of neglect and the word manslaughter gets thrown around. Mm-hmm. But at some point in time, the neglect is so intentional that it's not necessarily neglect anymore. And then you're determining degrees. Does this rise to premeditated,
right?
Or is it just still second degree? And I use just loosely as well, but there is something wrong with these people who gave birth to her, because I don't want to call them parents.
Nope.
That they tortured her.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
she was in a state of torture when she succumbed.
Yes, and she was very well aware of her predicament because text messages that they found showed how much she complained to her mother about the flies in her room, about her body, everything. She begged her sister for help. Please. She begged her father, her mother for help. She just want
to go to school. Somebody give me a shower and send me to school, please.
Yes, right? And they can't. That help never comes. Now, her parents are arrested right away.
Oh, good.
And for the charges were gross negligent manslaughter.
Yep.
That is what, and it's
That's
so
what
true.
It is. Voluntary manslaughter is gross negligence.
Yes. And there is obviously compelling evidence, right? Like, this is not a difficult case to prosecute. This is a very difficult case to defend. Her mother, Sarah Lloyd Jones, she does not want to go through with the trial. So she just pleaded guilty to manslaughter by gross negligence in December 2022. All right?
Okay.
Her father, Alan Titford, though, he was not willing to plead guilty. So he rolled the dice with a trial, which took 3 weeks, and it took place just after Sarah Jones's guilty plea. I will tell you, the mother is sentenced to 6 years in prison.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Remember, this is the UK.
Okay.
At Alan's trial, the defense attempted to deflect and say that it was social services, doctors, and the school that also failed Kaylea.
How? It was during COVID.
Well,
were they failing her before? I mean, I could see where the school might be concerned, and maybe have an obligation to report like how out of control her weight had been starting to get. But still, to some extent, not much is going to happen when you report those things as an educator or caregiver. You know that.
Yep.
Because you have to show more than just that the person is becoming morbidly obese. She's still being cared for.
Mm-hmm. This defense...
I mean, there could have been a neglect and abuse case started on them, in my opinion, if they allowed their immobile child to become that obese and weren't following doctor's orders.
But see,
those are hard to prove.
Yes, and up until the point of the lockdown, she was still attending school. She was gaining weight, certainly, but because she had been since 2013 to this point in time. But she also was developing and going through puberty and all of those things. So... the school, she's still active in school. She was more withdrawn and shy, but she was still participating in that aspect. The prosecution completely picks apart the defense because it's able to show how it was actually Kaylee's parents that stopped participating in the diabetic services, in the disability services, in medical visits prior to the lockdown.
These assholes got lazy and did not want to take care of their daughter 24/7.
Sure did.
During the lockdown.
And
That's it.
And I think the older that she got, the more that they were like, it's time for you to start taking care of yourself. Not recognizing that for her whole life, she will need assistance.
Just as a commentary, if anybody out there, if any of people that terrible actually listen to our podcast, not that you guys are, decide that you can no longer care for someone because it's just not good for you, give her up.
Yes.
So that she can go someplace, even if it's to a facility, because that's better than dying in the manner within which she died.
The torturous, slowly decaying way that she died.
Yeah.
She decayed to death.
Because she certainly was being fed. I mean, yes, it's malnutrition on a different level because she wasn't getting anything she needed. It had to have been something diabetic related, probably.
Oh, I'm
sure.
She
probably went into a diabetic coma.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes. With the school locking down, obviously she's left extremely vulnerable. But, Megan, the school did attempt to call several times to check and to offer services, all of which her parents declined and eventually stopped answering altogether.
I believe that. And that is all damning, really good circumstantial evidence.
Yep. At Alan's trial, the jury heard that Kaylee's mom dealt with welfare calls from her school, especially during the 2020 COVID lockdown. One Newtown High, that was the high school she went to, the call log entry said, quote, "Mom struggling to support Kaylea at home while juggling work as a carer," end quote, which means mom is struggling being a caregiver to Kaylea.
This is during the lockdown, during one of the phone checks?
Yes.
Mom reported that though?
No. The school did.
Reported it, but it had to have been based off of a phone conversation they had.
Yes. It was a call log. Well, all I know about it is that the school was calling to do checks and to offer services. Mom was declining it. And in that call log where the school was documenting everything, that quote was in there. So it's clear that mom is struggling to work as a carer. That's why they were offering services, but they can't make them participate in it, and she was declining.
So this is an observation. Mom's not reporting that she's struggling.
No.
Based off the conversations they're having, their assessment is, okay, we think mom's starting to struggle, but she's declining.
Yes, the school is recognizing this, but doing their due diligence. But y'all, they can't force people to participate. Just so you know.
I'm in a devil's advocate you.
We can't hear either.
Could they have called somebody to go do a welfare check?
Here's the thing, though. My understanding is that they were not allowing social services in either.
Okay, but the school could have called for them to do a welfare check, and then if social services came in, the parents may have declined their entry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I don't know if the school, if they did. I don't know if they were concerned
this might
at
be
that
unpopular, but they should have.
Well, and that's probably
if you're worried about your clients.
I think that's what Alan's defense is trying to come at, is like, well, if we're going to put him on trial, then we should also put these other services on trial. And the prosecution is like, listen, they had started declining all of these services prior to the lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
So they had started neglecting her long
Correct.
before the lockdown.
I am not meaning to indicate that those service providers or the school are somehow responsible for her death or her abuse at all.
Right.
What I'm saying is I think they're starting to get enough information that in, normal due diligence from that professional perspective might be, okay, so we're noting some issues now. We might be getting to the point where we need to start reporting this. Mm-hmm. It was too late.
It was. It absolutely was. And the difference between what you're saying, which makes sense, and what the defense was saying is the defense wants to cast the responsibility on people other than the parents.
And I always like to point out in those situations, which that's not a terrible defense that they're making.
Sure.
That's fantastic. It doesn't make your client any less culpable, though. Right. I see this come in all the time where people are charged with crimes, and they're like, yeah, but this other person who was in the car with me is also guilty. They're the one that should have been charged. And then I always like to point out, oh, no, you're both guilty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
This is, the elements have been met to show that you committed the crime and probably that person too. So in my opinion, I don't know why the prosecutor only charged one person, or I don't know why this person got this plea deal. I'm just letting you know from where I'm sitting that you're both culpable. So,
right. But you're the one on trial today,
playing this game, as I'm pointing my fingers in both directions, isn't going to work out for you in terms of it being a valid defense.
Correct. And Alan Titford was asked in court what he had done to help his partner care for their disabled child. Because remember, by his trial, Mom had already pled guilty.
And is serving 6 years.
She is. And he did say nothing. He admitted that it was possible things would have been different if he had helped. Wow. You think that what a revelation you've had,
ladies, be
sir.
Careful when you pick your partners.
Also, at the hearing, text messages between Kaylea and her mother were read by the court, which showed how Kaylea was aware of and becoming increasingly distressed by her living and physical conditions. When she complained of flies constantly in her bedroom and landing on her, her mother replied, "They like you." So
that's disgusting. And I don't mean that that's like
it is.
Emotionally disgusting.
Sure is. Oh, no, those flies are just your friends.
Oh, they like you?
They're your
like pets?
You. Yep. They're only laying eggs all over your open sores, which are turned into maggots. I don't know if you know the life cycle of a fly.
Charnell, I can only hope that, much like as we've referred to little Nikki multiple times, that when this person meets their maker, a very similar form of decompensation while she's alive occurs to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we don't eye for an eye here. That's not what we do. We have a justice system, and we punish people in human ways. We don't dehumanize people in their punishments, which has happened over the centuries, but we're not supposed to do that now as part of our general penal code.
Right.
But there's got to be something in the afterlife that will make up for all of this.
There is, most definitely.
All right.
In another message, Kaylea told her mom that she had soiled herself. After her mom replied, in frustration, she was yelling at her, degrading her, for soiling herself, Kaylea said in a text message, "Why do you get mad at me? It's not my fault. Like, I need help getting to the bathroom," you know. That night, before her death, Alan Titford heard his daughter screaming and texted her twice, telling her to shut up, and hours later, she had died. Okay, that was, keep in mind, though, 999 wasn't called for another 48 hours. So she's screaming in pain. Her father is texting her to shut up, likely so that he just doesn't have to deal with her or hear her or have it on his conscience anymore. Then they don't hear anything for 2 days and decide to go in. You can't tell me that these people don't have some sort of significant mental illness themselves that has made them entirely, what is the right word?
But
no
Charnell,
emotional, they have no attachment to this girl, none whatsoever. They have dehumanized her to justify their own just unwillingness to care for her.
I don't even know that I could blame a mental illness on this, because it suddenly came on. I mean, I know that lockdown and COVID brought on a lot of emotional distress for people in terms of isolation.
Yeah.
But I don't consider that necessarily a qualified diagnosable mental illness that would mitigate or justify the behavior.
But this lack of caring for her started in 2013 and just started to, it
manifested 7 years later in terms of.
It came to a head when,
because there was no one to check on them.
Mm-hmm.
There were no checks and balances.
Exactly.
There was no one to see and to hold them accountable for the way that they'd been feeling since 2013.
Exactly.
So these are people that had developed an animosity toward their child and their need to have to care for her, even as far back, like you stated, as 2013, when she was probably what 7 years old or something like that, or 8?
Well, she was born, no, she would have been 9.
9.
Yeah,
yes,
she was born in
math is
2004.
hard. Numbers are hard.
Okay. Yep. Right. But at that point in time, so in 2013, though, she was still participating in the wheelchair, the basketball, up until, like, from what I can tell, age 11 or so. And then she had started gaining weight, but it was about that age, like 11, 12, that she stopped participating in those.
See,
things.
here in the States, that is not voluntary manslaughter. This is second-degree murder here.
Yeah.
Maybe even first degree if you can show premeditation, but I think it clearly fits in second. Voluntary manslaughter, where there's an act or omission, that negligence that causes death with it, doesn't, gross negligence is what we're talking
That is
here.
what it is, gross negligence.
And so that is second degree murder that could have been articulated, really, truly. And I just don't know enough about how they charge over there to know if it was the appropriate charge. But please tell me our end results here.
Well, following a 3-week trial at the Mold Crown Court, Alan Titford was found guilty of the same charges as her mother, gross negligence manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 7 years, 6 months in January 2023. Now, there's more about this.
I figured.
Judge Martin Griffiths held that both parents were, quote, both equally responsible and were both equally culpable, end quote. It was the first time in the UK that parents had been prosecuted for manslaughter for not managing their child's weight, as most cases dealing with childhood obesity, obesity are dealt with in family courts.
Yes.
However, failing to manage Kaylea's weight was only one of the several prosecutable failures in her parental duty of care. The others listed by the court were ensuring that Kaylea did not stay immobile for periods of detriment to her health and well-being, ensuring that she was living in a safe and hygienic environment, ensuring that her body was maintained to a hygienic physical standard, ensuring that her physical health needs were met, and ensuring that when she needed medical assistance, it was sought. The pair was sentenced at the Swansea Crown Court on March 7th before Judge Martin Griffiths, whose remarks were televised. It was the first hearing in Wales to be televised after the law was changed the past year for cameras to be allowed in court. The Solicitor General referred to the conviction to the Court of Appeal under the unduly lenient sentences scheme for review.
Good.
On May 19th, 2023, the Court of Appeal increased their sentences after a full hearing. So Sarah Lloyd Jones' sentence was increased to 8 years, and Alan Titford's was increased to 10 years. Solicitor General, that means lawyer over here,
Yes.
Michael Tomlinson,
Prosecutor.
stated, quote, "This was a deeply distressing and upsetting case, and my thoughts today are with all of those who loved Kaylea. Kaylea was subjected to horrific neglect by her parents, and the court's decision to extend Alan Titford and Sarah Lloyd Jones's sentences sends a clear message that child abuse will never be tolerated," end quote. By the way, I have to tell you, how we pronounce his name is Alan. How they probably say it is Alon. Just know there is a dialect difference here. His name is spelled L-U-L. Oh my God. A-L-U-N.
Okay.
Okay. That's still Alan here, but it would be more of an emphasis probably over there of the Alan. Don't at me about the pronunciation, guys, because I
appreciate
have a dialect.
That jurist in his explanation that this was child abuse, and this simply wasn't a case of a mismanaged weight of a child, which can be very touchy when dealing with kids that have those type of diagnoses. Yes. I know that it can be very hard to manage your child's weight, and that in and of itself, just a child being obese or even really small, by the way, is not evidence of child abuse, but coupled with all of the other things here, the severe neglect.
Look at all the other things that they failed her at. It was not simply about her weight.
No.
There was so much more here. And I did love the statement of when we increase their sentence from 6 and 7 years respectively to 8 and 10, it does send the message of we are not going to just poo-poo away child abuse. This is not tolerated. You will be criminally charged. You will go away when when you abuse your child.
Or you neglect your child to the point of their death, which is abuse.
Which is exactly what happened here. Personally, do I feel 8 and 10 years is enough? No. But you have to go by the letter of the law, and that's where the maximum standards were for what happened. But
these are considered, similarly to here, sentencing guidelines. And when you take individuals who don't have prior criminal histories and you put these scores on them, and then you look at things like potential risk for recidivism and things like that, you end up with time frames for sentences that seem much lower than what they should be.
Yes.
And if you take a manslaughter, which depending on where you are, especially over there, you have a maximum amount by law of like 15 years on some of these, I can see, not agree, where a sentence of anywhere between 7 and 10 years is probably going to be the guideline on a 15-year felony.
I know.
It is. It can make us sick all day long. You can actually always advocate for more sentencing reforms in these type of cases. And jurists can exceed sentencing guidelines, which gives people automatic rights to appeal, which also, can extend to these cases and trauma for the victims. Or their families. Just keep those things in mind as we're going through and feeling hurt or judgmental or like we want to vomit because how a case ended.
Yes. Well, I have to tell you, the first time that I learned the hard way about this is, I don't know, I had been a CPS worker for probably 2 years.
Are you talking about our case where the kid was tortured that we got the conviction on his parents down in the misdemeanor court?
No, I'm talking about one of the first child deaths that I dealt with in CPS.
Yes.
And it went to criminal, and the man who was responsible for biting off parts of this 3-year-old's fingers and threw her down the stairs that resulted in her death, he got 10 years.
Yeah.
Got 10 years. And I mean, I think he's even out now. I mean, that was so long ago. And that was my first shock of how, in my opinion, lenient our sentencing guidelines are for this sort of thing. It really highlighted for me like some places where we could do better as a society in our statute maximum sentencing guidelines. He did get the max.
I know.
That was the max.
Based off of what he was convicted of,
For sure. Yes.
I don't know that was probably necessarily the right conviction or what the prosecutor wanted to have happen in that case, if I recall correctly. And I actually didn't handle that case, so we probably could cover it someday.
Yeah, I know.
If you can get through it.
A lot of people have
asked
requested
it. I know. I'm sure.
So
I mean, technically, I worked for the county government at the time, so it could be potentially. Well, I'll have to see what my limitations are.
Yeah.
Are you going to bathe me?
Yeah. Let's have a bath. Do you guys want to? Everyone collectively, just let a sigh out.
And we'll let you know that in the middle of this, for those of you that are listening, Brain Bath Jason arrived. So we will let you participate in at least the bath. We're going to start you off with a bath.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
Yeah, it's nice of you to finally show up to the job you don't get paid for.
Yeah, right?
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
All right.
Stupid criminals.
We have a stupid
criminal. Don't press buttons if you don't know what they're to.
I was about, that's what she said.
No, you can press all those buttons.
You'll eventually get there. Right. And you don't know where they lead.
Just keep hitting the buttons until something happens.
There you go. Work on that.
That one.
Oh, gosh. I think this one's perfect for Brain Bath Jason. How about the Maxi Pad Bandit?
Oh,
I love it. Give it to me.
Welcome to the studio, Jason.
Can't wait.
In Apple Valley, California, a burglary guy wearing a maxi pad stuck to his forehead breaks into an auto parts store and steals boxes of phone chargers and auto accessories. The police report claims the man was highly intoxicated.
No.
Shocking. What?
I'm shocked that somebody would stick maxi pads to their face as a form of disguise.
I know what
eye
will throw
holes?
them up. No, he just put it right on his forehead.
Smacking on his forehead.
Right.
Now they won't recognize me.
They can't see my forehead.
You know where he went
They're
wrong? He
they're
didn't throw
gonna
a couple
know.
on his cheeks and down his nose.
Right.
That's where he went wrong.
They're gonna know. They're
They're
not gonna know.
gonna know.
They're
Yep.
gonna know.
So that's and also there is apparently a YouTube video.
There has to be.
If you just type in Maxi Pad Bandit suspect arrested in
Do
California,
that on someone else's phone.
you can see the YouTube video of the Maxi Pad Bandit. And I feel like while we're on to bandits, did you find it, Meg?
You're gonna get all kinds of stuff popping up on your phone now.
There he is.
Oh,
Holy shit.
oh my God, you guys! It's not just a Maxi Pad. It is the type that you put.
It's an overnight.
It's after you have a baby. It's those kind. It's like an entire. It's the gigantic ones that after you have a baby, they make you sit in. Oh my God, he did put it over his eyes too. Stop it. How can he see?
I think he can see out from under him a
I don't
little
know,
bit.
but I can smell that picture.
Do you know what a Maxi Pad smells like? Because they do have a fragrance, some of them.
Oh no, that hides your face better.
Oh, there's other ways. Yeah, see, that guy put it on like an elephant trunk. Wow.
This guy, I think, just forgot his mask at home
Oh my
during
God.
COVID.
Oh, that's so bad.
Once you start looking it up,
Don't.
it leads to all kinds of things.
I didn't do it incognito either, so I'm probably going to get a bunch of stay free ads now.
Oh.
Stay free
Whoops.
for the bandit. He didn't stay free that day.
He didn't.
I'm assuming you get caught.
That's a brand of Maxi Pads, just so you know.
Good to know.
Yeah, I'm like, how would you know that?
I was
Unless
guessing.
we told
That
you.
guy's
guess.
never
I know
going to
you have a
stay
daughter,
free.
but-
He's always going to get convicted. Now he won't be carefree at all.
He won't.
Those
That
are
was
three brands.
massive Maxi Pad, by the
Yes, it
way.
was.
Like, that was just like, ugh. How about the Beer Box Bandit?
Oh.
If
Did he make a Roman soldier helmet out of his?
I
Out
don't
of a
beer-
can
of
of
the case-
out
of
of
the
a case of
case.
Miller Lite.
allow me to read on.
It was Milwaukee's best. You know it was.
This man,
Natty.
the Beer Box Bandit, barged into an all-night gas station wearing the empty box from his last box of beer.
We knew it.
The thief didn't demand money. He just stole some more cases of beer. I don't even hate him.
No.
Like, I really don't.
I don't
He
either.
walked in with a Bush Light or a Natty Light box
Was the
on
eye
his
holes
head.
Yeah.
cut out?
Yes, with eye holes cut out.
Walked over, grabbed another case.
One for each hand, and then pieced out. Like, where's
It
the
was
crime?
Natty. He grabbed the dirty 30 and walked
It's
himself out.
Still a better disguise than the Maxi Pad.
It really is. It is.
At least
I
that
agree.
covered up his whole. He just looked like a Minecraft character
Right.
for a little while. Like, yes. Well, hopefully that bathed you all a little bit.
You did.
The Maxi Pad and the Beer Bandit, and
Well,
just
thank
know
you.
if you're gonna, I guess. If we're giving advice on how to rob a convenience store, which we're not, I would go with the beer box over the Maxi Pad. But you do you,
Be
everyone.
creative. Just be creative.
I mean, we could throw all kinds of things out there at this
My
point.
favorite is the people who try to rob banks or different stores or whatnot with nylons on their head that you can see through.
I know.
So many people have done that.
It's like they think it distorts their face
yes,
enough.
and it just doesn't.
If you pull it all the way down and then pull it back, you can
Drew, listen.
change your ethnicity.
But you can
the
still
duct tape,
see who
the duct
you
tape
are.
bandit.
Do the homework. Do the math. I ain't no duct tape bandit.
Oh, we'll
see
show
a
you.
previous episode.
Oh,
He doesn't
okay.
listen.
I don't.
It is the best. Between recordings here, we're going to have to play it for you.
We will.
There's a whole song about the duct tape bandit. He
Did
duct
you
taped
guys
his
make
face.
this up?
No.
It's a real guy in like Wisconsin or something like that.
He thinks we make things up that are real, like the songs,
I know.
like the ass and titty songs. Here we are all over again. He thinks we're lying.
I really would have thought you were making that up.
No.
I know,
No.
but
I've
fortunately,
never heard the
that
ass
is considered art here in the United States of America.
I do have to tell you,
White trash of the universe.
thanks to the duct tape bandit. Now, when people say, if they would just do their homework, I immediately go, do the
math.
homework, do the math. I ain't no duct tape bandit. If you guys don't know what we're talking about because you didn't listen to the previous episode, it was a long time ago. Google
is your
it.
friend.
Yes, YouTube it. The Duct Tape Bandit song, You're Welcome. It's hilarious. If you're having a bad day and want to feel better about yourself,
You will.
Yep, just do that. Get to know the Duct Tape Bandit, and then the next time people say do something about
Do the
doing math
homework?
or doing or homework, you're gonna be like, do the homework, do the math. I ain't no duct tape bandit. It's like a whole song. It's
a rap.
I'm gonna play it for you.
Realistically,
wait.
there's Marshall
Can't wait.
Mathers should have put it on his new album.
Should have, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening for another episode, and thank you for supporting us. If you would like to have a bunch of bonus content, just click on the link below in like the show notes where it says join Patreon here. You could get so much more of us to entertain you all month long. There are literally hundreds of episodes for you to catch up on there, first of all. But then also from this point forward, then as long as you stay a subscriber, you can continue to get all of our bonus content.
And those are the
there.
best ones.
They really
They
are.
are. They are. We tone ourselves down, believe it or not, for the general audience. And we really become our authentic selves in our Patreon episodes, I
They're
think.
sorry.
Unfiltered.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much. And we hope that you keep it curious.
And keep listening.
Bye-bye.
No.
Until next
until next
time.
time.
It's been a
Failed.
rough morning. I'm
Until
sorry.
next time.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.